I'm Scott with Work Happier, where we're building better workplaces and happier workforces through the experiences of people. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.
So I was reading something recently from a new manager, and they discovered that their direct report makes more money than they do, and they're frustrated. Understandably, fair enough. I've been there, certainly, and so they bring it up to their company, and the company says, "Yeah, we can talk about it, but we're on kind of a pay freeze until the end of the fiscal year. So can we revisit it in a few months?" And this is where things kind of go sideways. The person starts talking about losing motivation, kind of checking out, skipping a leadership retreat. Effectively, they're almost like punishing. They think that they're punishing the company, and by the end of it, I wasn't really wondering whether they deserved a raise. I was wondering whether this person should be a manager at all, right? And not because they were upset. Like I said, that's a totally normal reaction, but it's because of what happened next, what they were doing. So when we look at that, we kind of have to start with a pretty basic question, which is like, why do you care? Really, like, what changed? Your pay didn't change. Your job didn't change. Your boss didn't change. Your opportunities here, you're still moving up in the company. That hasn't changed. And like 10 minutes ago, before you looked at this, payroll slip or whatever you looked at, you were happy. Bills are paid, career's moving forward, and then you get this piece of information that's, whatever, and all of a sudden everything feels different. Reality hasn't changed yet. Your perception has now changed. And it's an important distinction to make because people, will often spend a lot of time thinking and acting like those are the same thing. And they're not until they are. And in this case, they're not yet. And that's kind of where we start to hit a contradiction in this situation, right? Because somebody says, this person in this case, I deserve a raise because I'm leadership material. I have potential. You see that in me. I'm ready for more responsibility. I am a leader. Therefore, I should be paid more. And that might be true. Maybe that's all true. But then it begs the question, like, we have to explain what the response is because it doesn't match up. And it's a classic example. I don't care what you say. Say whatever you want. I care what you do. And specifically what you do when you run into an adverse situation or you hit friction, and that's what this is. This is friction, and it's actually a super minor piece of, it's so small in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. Like I said, it's not reality. And that reality, that's where the problem starts. That's the actual thing, not the feeling, the behavior. You disengage, you lose motivation, you stop learning, you stop teaching, you skip opportunities. And like I said earlier, you check out. Well, now you're allowing your feelings to drive your car. And this is where the conversation often stops when we're talking about stuff like this, because everybody seems to think that this is a personal problem, but it's not. This is an organizational problem because it's not just your problem at this point. It's not your problem anymore. It's where organizational dysfunction comes from. Because so we talk about workplace culture all the time. I see it everywhere. Engagement, trust, values, psychological safety, whatever. But what are they actually talking about? They're talking about this. This is what we're talking about. Behavior that has consequences and not in the way that you think. It's not accountability or anything like that. It's people experiencing work through other people. I've talked about this all the time. You're responsible for the experience of people around you, up, down, sideways on the organizational chart. So now the people around you, they're experiencing your resentment, your frustration, your disengagement. Huge. Your lack of perspective on the situation. And that changes their experience. So they react. And then somebody else reacts. And then their perception changes. And then behavior changes, just like it has here. And now you've created an organizational problem. Because before, nobody else's perception had changed, just yours. But now it has. Now that perception has actually changed reality. And that's what so many people miss about this. The original perception shift with you, that didn't change reality. You had a choice at that moment. Your reaction to it did. Your choice to change behavior did, to allow it to drive your car. And that's why we end up wondering so often, why is work so much harder than it really needs to be? Because the sin isn't that you got upset. The sin is that you never challenged the thinking underneath that. You let the feeling become behavior. And then that behavior becomes culture. And the culture becomes the environment that everybody else has to live in. And that's why this matters, not because of the raise, not because of your direct report, not because of management and leadership, because unchallenged bullshit spreads. And once it spreads, everybody pays for it. And that's what's buried underneath every story like this. It's not compensation. It's not leadership. It's organizational dysfunction is the accumulated cost of unexamined thinking. So examine your thinking. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Please like the video if you like the video. And if you'd like to work with me, of course, my information is in the description below, or you can always check out my website, workhappier.ca. And do not forget, please, it is all about the people. Thanks.